Hi, how do you do?
Hi, Toni. Nice to meet you.
LAPD cop, works South Central Newton Division.
Yes, that's right.
Shooting Newton.
Hey, no, shooting Newton.
Well, new at 6, a teenage girl has filed a lawsuit against the LAPD after an officer in South LA killed her father.
These photos, once public on Instagram and Facebook, but recently removed from public view, show LAPD officer Toni McBride posing with rifles and handguns. And in this video clip, shows her cheering and dancing after firing at targets at a shooting range. And this is police body camera video from April 22nd, when Officer McBride was sent to the scene of a car crash in South LA and confronted a shirtless man who a 911 caller told police was trying to stab himself after colliding with several cars.
Let me see your hands, man.
The man we now know was 38-year-old Daniel Hernandez, holds his hands to his sides and steps towards McBride as she yells for him to stop and 3 times to drop a knife.
Drop the knife. Drop it.
McBride fires twice and Hernandez falls. He begins to stand again. McBride fires 4 more times. The LAPD showed a photo of the box cutter knife they say Hernandez was holding, though the attorney who filed the lawsuit says Hernandez was still far away from McBride and not an imminent threat to anyone.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Alright, this is a cool gun. This is a really 87. This is such a cool gun. I'm not even lying right now.
Welcome to American Wounds. I'm your host, Nate Grapes. This is episode 1 of LAPD Uncovered, Officer Toni McBride and the killing of Daniel Hernandez. As we continue reviewing cases of police violence from cities across the country, we've created the LAPD Uncovered series in order to track consistencies and inconsistencies within a single department. What remains to be understood is why the United States routinely ranks higher in fatal police interactions than any of the world's superpowers, including all of Europe, Australia, and Asia minus only the Philippines. The Los Angeles Police Department typically kills more of its citizens than any other department in the country, coinciding with a long and storied history of community tension. However, through body camera footage, first-hand accounts, eyewitness reports, and expert analysis, we can begin to formulate a more realistic assessment of a department that killed 15 people in 2019 and shot dozens more. On April 22, 2020, amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent quarantine, LAPD dispatch received multiple 911 calls.
911, emergency operator 583. Hello?
Hi, there's been a car crash with 5 cars, and the main car that hit everyone is the man who's killing himself in his car.
He did? What do you mean killing himself? How is he doing that?
It's the man who's trying to kill himself, stabbing himself.
At least 3 LAPD officers arrived at the chaotic scene that day. But it would be 23-year-old Officer Toni McBride that would confront and ultimately shoot and kill 38-year-old Los Angeles native Daniel Hernandez. Toni McBride is an Irish and Italian American who grew up in Ventura County, a suburban area about 50 miles north of Los Angeles. Part of a close-knit family of service workers and law enforcement, Toni grew up loving sports and the outdoors. A self-described adrenaline junkie, before joining the LAPD, Toni's risk-taking was relegated to extreme adventure sports and experiences. In a cover story with the Blue Press, Toni reflected on her childhood, saying, quote, "I grew up in an area without gangs or hardly any crime. I pretty much only knew about gang members from what my dad told me or from TV shows." Toni's father is none other than Jamie McBride, a well-known 25-year veteran of the LAPD who worked both as an officer and detective before retiring. While on the force, Jamie waved the LAPD flag with pride, repeatedly showing up in media pieces and an episode of LAPD Life on the Beat. Along with his work for the LAPD, Jamie also carved out a place in Hollywood, where he's been scoring cop and criminal roles in films like The Transformers since 2002. Jamie McBride's police record was difficult to access in full. However, it appears that he was involved with at least 6 shootings during his first 11 years on the job. After more than 2 decades on the force, Jamie McBride was removed from the field in 2012, following an internal incident in which he refused to sign a declaration prepared by a federal prosecutor. Jamie McBride ultimately sued the LAPD for, quote, hypothyroidism brought on by stress, and received $1.5 million from the city. Rather than return to the force, Jamie went on to be elected as a director of the Los Angeles Police Protective League, whose mission is to, quote, vigilantly protect, promote, and improve the working conditions, legal rights, compensation, and benefits of the LAPD officers. The LAPPL functions as a labor union for the LAPD. However, it's widely considered one of the most powerful lobbying arms for the LA mayor and city council, securing millions every year for local elections. Toni's father was a major source of inspiration for her career in law enforcement. She went on to tell the Blue Press, quote, when I was younger, I was always curious about becoming a first responder since I grew up with my dad being an LAPD officer. I used to dress up in his uniform and run around the house. Apparently, Toni couldn't wait to follow in her father's footsteps, as she joined the LAPD Reserves in 2016 at the young age of 18. A year later, she would go on to become the first and youngest female to complete the Level 2 Reserve Academy at age 19, where she was awarded top shot in her class. Reflecting on her time at the academy, Toni recalled her father telling her not to embarrass the family name. When she graduated, Jamie McBride quoted the 1973 Clint Eastwood film Magnum Force, reminding his daughter that a man's got to know his limitations, but that, quote, everyone has different limitations. Being a female, you're not as physically strong as a male officer, so you need to work smarter. It's no coincidence that Toni began her career with the LAPD at such a young age. Back in 2016, a person could apply to be a reserve officer at 18 years old. However, in order to carry and train with a gun, you had to be 21. When 19-year-old Toni McBride was in the LAPD Level 2 Reserves, her father Jamie called in a favor from then-assistant LAPD Chief Bia Gurmala. A green light was given to forego the restrictions and allow 19-year-old Toni to commence with firearms training. Despite pushing for rule changes on behalf of his daughter, Jamie McBride is usually the one resisting change to the LAPD. Jamie was covered in a 2016 piece for Vice, where they shadowed him at a city proposal to establish new use of force guidelines for local cops. This was coming after a particularly brutal 2015 in which LAPD officers participated in 21 fatal shootings. The proposals were for a strategy called de-escalation, something being talked about to this day. McBride, however, testified against these proposed changes, promising that the rules would, quote, get officers killed, plain and simple. Every second counts, and hesitation will kill you. McBride went on to further warn the commission, stating, quote, make no mistake, if an officer is killed as a result, the blood will be on your hands. Yet the same high propensity for police shootings and killings amongst the LAPD 5 years ago remains a reality to this day. In other major cities like Chicago, New York, Baltimore, and DC, despite the high gun violence, there are far less police shootings and killings than that of the Los Angeles Police Department. In fact, in 2019, there were 28 entire states that had less fatal interactions with the police than the LAPD did as a single department. Following in her father's footsteps, Toni began her patrol in the LAPD's Rampart Division, but was moved to Newton Division within her first year. Newton Division, known to both cops and locals as Shootin' Newton, is located in South Central Los Angeles. It was given this name due to the division's regular interactions with gang members, criminals, and people living in the streets. For much of the 1990s, the area averaged 100 homicides a year despite its relatively small geography. The film End of Watch was based on the experiences of Newton Division police officers. Jamie McBride is rumored to have consulted the filmmakers after putting in years with the Newton Division himself. In her interview with the Blue Press, Toni spoke on a recent opportunity to work on a patrol with her father, recalling, quote, it was really cool because we worked Newton Patrol where he used to work when he was younger. Not to be outshined by her larger-than-life father, Toni made waves early in her career as she started showing up in celebrity gun trainer Taryn Butler's internet videos. These videos highlight Taryn's firearms, equipment, and training company, Taryn Tactical Innovations. Taryn Butler is a 23-time Southwest Pistol League champion who's earned a big reputation as weapons trainer to the stars. Taryn has trained the likes of Michael B. Jordan, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Jason Statham, Chris Hemsworth, and countless more. His biggest claim to fame is the work he did training Keanu Reeves for the John Wick series. In her interview with the Blue Press, Toni said that she met Taryn at a gun expo and took an invitation to come train at his range. Before long, Toni could be seen crushing courses on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram in skin-tight tactical gear. Toni credits her success in competitive shooting to Taryn's training. Taryn even gifted Toni with a pistol worth several $1,000s that she uses in competitions to this day.
Why is there a pencil? I love it. Oh my god, let's go shoot it.
Okay.
Let's go shoot it. Oh my god. Oh my god, this is so clean. Oh my god.
What model it is?
Taryn's reputation in Hollywood is bolstered by the beautiful young women that he videotapes training on his range and posts for the world to see on his Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram accounts. These women, referred to at times as Taryn's angels, can be viewed training with some of the world's biggest stars.
I found my dad's gun. Cool, dude. It's like
Taryn Butler came under public scrutiny in early 2020 when a self-shot video came out of him speaking to model Jade Struck in what she and many others felt was a sexually aggressive manner.
You want a big black cock in you, don't you?
No.
Say it.
No.
Say it. All girls do. Now let's see your stomach. Go lower.
What?
Show us lowerness and higherness. Nice abs. Go lower. It's our video.
No.
You're all lubed up. Edge of the precious.
No, you're stupid.
Let's see it.
Before killing Daniel Hernandez, Toni McBride was gaining a fast following in the world of competitive firearms. In addition to her work with Taryn Butler, Toni has made repeated social media and internet appearances that seemingly promote firearms and firearm accessory brands. The LAPD told The Appeal, however, that officers are barred from receiving any outside sponsorships based on their employment with the department. After the events of April 22nd, Toni's relationship with Taryn Butler and the videos of her high-intensity weapons training have been called into question. In a federal lawsuit filed against Toni McBride by Daniel Hernandez's 14-year-old daughter, lawyers claim that Toni has, quote, reckless, violent, and homicidal propensities. One of the lawyers told a reporter for The Appeal, quote, I don't think a peace officer should be glorifying guns and violence like this. The way she rejoices at these shooting ranges, I think it shows a very immature police officer. If it wasn't for her trigger happiness, I don't think this would have happened. While the LAPD and other departments may try to downplay the effect that tactical weapons training has on officers, Toni herself was quoted as saying, since I train so much at TTI, I feel more confident in my shooting abilities. The issue of police training has gripped the nation in recent months. Typically, skeptics call into question the lack of training for U.S. police officers. However, there's another side that believes police officers may be receiving too much soldier-like training when they should be learning de-escalation and other methods of peacekeeping. This high-intensity combat training, often referred to as warrior training, is something officers do on their own time to prepare themselves for the perceived battles they will face in the streets. Battles like the one Toni fought on April 22nd. According to the LAPD, as well as Toni McBride's lawyer, Larry Hanna, Toni did nothing wrong that day. Hanna told journalist Kate Cagle, quote, any expert will tell you, you can't let anybody get within 25 feet of you with a knife. However, T.T. Williams Jr., a retired 30-year veteran of the LAPD who spent the last 20 years as an expert witness on use of force cases, believes otherwise. He told Cagle, quote, I'm critical from the first shot because there was no less than lethal that was deployed. As Williams watched Toni's body camera footage, he went on to say, quote, that's bad. See all those people in the background? They could be victims of the shooting. Your background is very, very important. You are trained the first thing you should assess is your background. Williams finished his assessment by criticizing the shots that Officer Toni McBride fired once Hernandez was already on the ground. Williams demands, quote, when he's down and trying to get up, there's no threat. He's just trying to get up. He gets shot twice. Then he gets shot an additional 2 times when he's on the ground. Again, where's the threat? And yet Ed Obayashi, a police use of force expert who trains officers, is convinced that the threat was unavoidable, stating, quote, "No doubt McBride faced an immediate threat to her life," going on to say that she had no choice but to, quote, "end the threat." Criminal legal reform advocates believe officers may be getting far too much weapons training and not enough training in how to handle difficult and nuanced human interactions. In the case of Daniel Hernandez, multiple 911 callers and witnesses on the scene warned the LAPD that Hernandez may have been trying to harm or even kill himself. Alex Vitale, a sociology professor at Brooklyn College and the author of The End of Policing, wrote, quote, "Between 25 and 50% of all people killed by the police in the U.S. are experiencing a mental health crisis at the time of the incident." Given the clear warning about Daniel Hernandez's mental state, in addition to the relatively small knife he had on him, many advocates are questioning why he had to die at all that day. This wasn't the first time on record that Daniel Hernandez had a violent interaction with officers of the LAPD's Newton Division. 11 years prior, Hernandez filed a lawsuit against the department that claimed officers showed up to his family's home to question them about drinking on their front porch. When Hernandez inadvertently sprayed one of the officers with a garden hose, the officers pepper sprayed him and dragged him to a children's swimming pool where they forced his head into the water and beat him up. According to the lawsuit, when Hernandez stated he couldn't breathe, the officers allegedly laughed and dunked his head again. Daniel's brother tried to step in and stop the assault, but he was arrested and sentenced to 3 years in prison. The lawsuit was dismissed. However, the incident would leave a mark on the Hernandez family, including Daniel's sister and his then 3-year-old daughter. Now 14, Daniel Hernandez's daughter is suing Toni McBride and the LAPD for what the family and their legal team believe was an avoidable killing. Arnaldo Casillas, an attorney representing the Hernandez family, told the LA Times, quote, "Do we want police officers to be gunslingers or to live up to the LAPD motto, to protect and to serve?" When asked if her tactical training played a part in the fatal incident, Casillas responded by saying, quote, "She loves to shoot all these things as fast as she can. That certainly is in stark contrast to the measured, cautious police officer, exhibiting a reverence for life. This isn't a movie." Since Daniel Hernandez's death, Toni McBride has continued with her Newton District patrol. Initially, Toni took down her social media accounts and removed herself from public discourse, but she has recently reactivated her Instagram after being featured prominently on the cover of the Blue Press. When asked by the Blue Press what Toni hoped to accomplish in her future with the LAPD, she responded, quote, "I've always wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps and become a detective." As of July 2020, both the District Attorney's Office and the LAPD's Force Investigation Unit are reviewing Toni McBride's role in the death of Daniel Hernandez. While the Hernandez family waits for the review and federal lawsuit to move forward, many in the city are calling for the California Attorney General to step in and ensure that the investigation isn't unfairly compromised due to Jamie McBride's power and influence. Daniel Hernandez's sister says that her family is traumatized by her brother's death, but that they will remember him for being a loving father to his daughter, an LA sports fanatic, and a mama's boy. That concludes episode 1 of LAPD Uncovered. This series will continue to highlight and review notable cases of police brutality, corruption, and killing within the LAPD. I'm your host, Nate Grapes. This is American Wounds.